Howdy folks. Today I thought I'd react to a different channel. I think I might have done one of them once. I'm not sure it was oceanic creatures, I can't remember now, but if I can't remember if I have, but anyway. So there's potentially a new channel reacting to. I thought I'd do something different. This is Top5s. This terrifying disease baffled scientists in 1916 and it mysteriously vanished. Ooh, sounds interesting.
Some that are modern day and with the passing of time will be solved, and then others that have endured for centuries with no solution in sight. In this video we'll be taking a look at both modern and old.
I think we have, haven't we? Obviously if you're new to the channel you might not know, but those who've watched my previous videos, it's like that voice sounds familiar. It sounds like, and of course he's got two channels, because some people have two channels now, but that voice sounds familiar. I'm pretty sure he's done ghost videos, or a ghost channel, I mean.
So from the CIA's version of a Cicada 3301 statue outside their headquarters that no one can seem to crack, to an unusual and disturbing illness that mystified doctors in the 1900s. In this video, we'll be taking a look at world mysteries. But before we begin, we'd like to do a quick Patreon plug, which you can skip if you're not interested, but you wouldn't believe how much content you'll be missing out on. Our two most recent Murderous Minds and Mind of Madness episodes were on Bin Laden and the DC sniper attacks, and we'll be uploading the Truck Stop Killer and a documentary on Ricardo Lopez over the next few days. So to not only show your support for the channel, but also get access to all of our documentaries, then head on over to Patreon. It'll be the best $2 you spent all month. But remember, as has been the case from the very start, if you genuinely cannot afford $2 a month, we offer all of our Patreon exclusive content for free, no questions asked. We understand times are tough, and not everyone can afford it, but still find value and escape in our work. So if you cannot afford it, then just drop us an email to patreon@top5s.co.uk to see all of our Patreon content for free. You don't have to explain your situation or anything. You don't even have to write anything in the email. If you're wondering why we don't just upload the Patreon documentaries to YouTube, it's because by posting it on Patreon, we can talk about the topics unfiltered and uncensored. Now with that out of the way, let's take a look at
Sorry. Thing is, if there must be a way around it, but surely, if you don't have to explain your situation, then what's stopping people just going on to your thing and saying can't afford it? That way they don't have to give money, would they? Would they?
5 incredible unsolved mysteries of the world we live in, and try and get to the bottom of them. Living statues. As the world recovers from the worst pandemic in our lifetimes, is it possible that another is just around the corner? We've all heard of the 1918 Spanish...
It's not the worst. It's... I don't mean that in a sensitive way. It's like I've lived through 3 pandemics by the look of it. I can't remember. It was really interesting. Was it? Yeah, I can't remember. One of them was H1N1, but I can't remember the scientific name for the one. But yeah, there's 3 pandemics I've lived through in my lifetime. The previous one didn't spread as much. Because the thing is, got H1N1, which will kill you at any age. Basically, swine flu, that will kill you at any age. The age difference between that one and COVID was a quick spreader, but the thing is, you actually had a chance of surviving COVID, whereas I'm not saying you didn't have a chance to survive swine flu, but the thing is, swine flu was brutal, you know what I mean?
Flu pandemic, which has been compared to the COVID pandemic we are currently experiencing. However, few will be aware of
by the media. That's the other thing that really annoyed scientists, is also when they say about when they say about the Spanish flu, what they meant is if you look at the pattern of Spanish flu, that's how a pandemic pattern works. It comes in waves, yeah? That's what they meant. The problem is the media spinned it, because they love drama, that, oh, it's like a doomsday killer virus like the Spanish flu. The other thing that annoys scientists when you compare it to Spanish flu is that Spanish flu was around. We just had a world war. We had no NHS. We don't have the healthcare system we had now. It was just being created. It's like in them days. It's like in them situations. In the old days, you could die from a tummy bug. You could die from having diarrhea. The Spanish flu was just a flu. But because we had such bad living conditions and we just survived a world war, that's why lots of people died from it. So the comparison is just stupid. It's annoying when they do that. The comparison is stupid. There's no comparison.
Another equally terrifying disease that swept the world at around the same time: sleepy sickness. In 1916, an unusual and disturbing illness emerged that eventually took the lives of over 1 million people and left countless others severely debilitated, often frozen inside unresponsive bodies. Young people, especially women, were the most vulnerable to the disease, although it affects all ages. The first symptoms were a sore throat, fever and a headache, followed by more alarming symptoms such as blurred vision and extreme weakness. Within hours, some victims experienced tremors, abnormal bodily movements, severe muscle pains, and delayed mental response. Symptoms advanced with terrifying speed, and even after receiving medical attention, patients deteriorated rapidly. Before falling into a coma, behavioral changes appeared, including psychosis and hallucinations, followed by increased drowsiness. Doctors were completely baffled by the bizarre epidemic that spread through Europe and the rest of the world. They named the disease Encephalitis Lethargica, which means inflammation of the brain that makes you tired, although it was more commonly referred to as sleepy sickness. Those that survived the disease often remained in a coma indefinitely, sometimes for months or years. And although full recoveries were not unheard of, they were very rare. Many of those stricken with the disease experienced ill effects for the rest of their lives, including vision problems, difficulty swallowing, personality changes, and sometimes permanent psychosis. One widespread problem in people recovering from sleepy sickness was post-encephalitic Parkinson's disease, leaving them with slowness, tremors, speech problems, and abnormal muscle movements. In more extreme cases...
Sorry, the other thing I'd like to say as well is also there are viruses on this planet, currently on this planet. There's some in Brazil as well. There's one that begins with M, sorry, and I can't remember what it's called exactly, but there are viruses that are 10 times more deadly than COVID floating around on this planet. If Ebola got out, which is quite interesting really, because a nurse came over with Ebola because she was helping out with the Red Cross on the thing in the front lines in Africa, and no one panicked. In America they sort of did. They got a bit dramatic, but they did it in a silly way. The thing is, it's like, yeah, even though you can treat it with antibiotics, it still doesn't make a difference, because until you get to the people, until you stop it dead in its tracks, it's like if that broke out in England, you're talking about tens of thousands dying in the first couple of weeks or so. You know, until if they don't catch it in time. You know what I mean? If they don't clamp it, or you know what I mean? There's so many viruses and plague viruses, all kinds of things that are 10 times more dangerous than COVID that are floating around. Swine flu is still floating around. That will kill you if you haven't had a jab, vaccine for it. And that'll still kill you. You know what I mean? And it's like we also got to learn to live. It's respiratory, almost like the cold. You know what I mean? It's like we got to learn to live with these viruses. Yeah, people are living in fear, and it's like, people are worried because the doctors go, it will keep coming back. Doesn't mean we're all going to die. It doesn't mean loads of people are going to die every year. I mean, well, believe it or not, there's loads of elderly people who die every year. There's I think on average, 26,000 people die every year because of seasonal flu. That's every year. That's not once in a blue moon. That is every year. That's quite a lot of people for every year. When you think about it, it piles up. But again, it's like, that's why you have your boosters. That's why the elderly have their booster shots. If we didn't have booster shots, like tons of people will be dying each year when the flu comes around. And it's like they even say if you're elderly, you should stay at home if in flu season. Interesting that, don't you think? We don't really hear. And it's like a guy who there's a paramedic who worked on, not paramedic, a doctor who worked, he works with pandemics basically, a specialist. And I think apart from, I can't remember if it's like apart from Ebola or SARS, he's literally had every virus because he's been exposed to it on the front line. I think he's caught every single virus. But he was saying, he had an interesting point, and that is the flu. Anyone who was high risk from COVID, these same people would get killed by the flu, and yet we take it for granted. Oh, sorry, I've got a. It's like, imagine all the times you got a cold or a flu, because you can handle it, you just shrug it off, and you go near your parents. You just wander around like there's no care in the world. Well, you could kill a lot of elderly people. Yeah, and he was making, and the point he made was, if it's the same level of thing, it's kind of like, if the cold doesn't bother you, then this shouldn't be bothering you. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. I'm not sure if I explain it right. You know what I mean? So it's like, but people worry about COVID. It's like, you can kill anyone who's at high risk in your family will die because of the flu. If you look at the list of things that the flu can do to you, it's not nice. The actual list of things, the way that COVID could kill you is about that big. Flu is about that big. I think one of them's ammonia. So it's like the flu may be gone, but then you get residual effects in your lungs and all kinds of nasty shit. It's not a nice virus to get. And we're not talking about the sort of cold where you go, oh, got a cold. I'm talking about the sort of flu that puts you in bed for a couple of days. You know what I mean? That's proper flu. That's proper cold.
Individuals retained their hearing, intelligence, and reasoning, but were left in a catatonic state, unable to respond to anything. Then, in 1928, as suddenly as it had appeared, the disease was gone, and no new cases were reported. However, thousands of those who survived the disease were left institutionalized or trapped inside their useless bodies. Over 40 years after the outbreak, some catatonic victims were treated with a newly developed anti-Parkinson drug called LDOPA. A number of the patients improved dramatically after treatment and became conscious, responsive, and aware of the world around them. But sadly, there was no miraculous recovery for most of them, and they slipped back into a catatonic state within a few days or weeks, with repeated doses having no effect. In 1990, the movie Awakenings was released, based on the memoirs of Oliver Sacks, the British neurologist who treated the patients with the then new drug LDOPA. Since the original pandemic, cases of sleepy sickness have been scarce, but not unheard of. Scarily, despite advances in medical science, the cause of the initial 1916 to 1928 outbreak have never been determined. However, it's thought to be caused by a particular strain of bacteria, called Diplococcus, known to cause sore throats. Though the evidence is insufficient to be certain, the findings of the research, however, strongly suggests that the sleepy sickness epidemic was caused by the body's excessive immune response to the bacteria, causing the immune system to attack the nerve cells of the brain. Similar to the way COVID attacks the lungs. What is equally unnerving is that experts believe the bacteria is currently dormant, but there is no reason to think that it's extinct.
That's the other thing as well, is that, if you're that way, again, I did a video about irrational fear of dying, and it comes up, and it's got a video at the end, like A to Z of things that kills you, and it puts a lot of things in perspective, like how many people, X amount of people, millions of people die each year because of this or that, the other. But it's like the recent one I found was that I think it's 64,000 people die every year because of sepsemia, which is like blood poisoning. So you can get a paper cut. One day you can get a paper cut, or you cut your hand in the kitchen, don't think much about it. Then you get blood poisoning and it kills you. So, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't help living in fear of dying and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's so many things in this world that can kill you. It gets silly.
In theory, sleepy sickness could strike again at any time. Saddle Ridge Horde. In February of 2013, Mary and her husband John, not their real names, from Sierra Nevada, California, were walking their dog on their own grounds when Mary noticed something strange on the side of the trail that looked like an old tin can poking out of the ground. Intrigued, Mary carefully worked the tin out of the dirt, and she uncovered something that would change their lives forever. Inside the rusty container was 1,411 gold coins. The coins were old, minted somewhere between 1847 and 1894, but they were in new condition. After retrieving the tin and taking it to officials, they discovered the haul was worth about $10 million, making it the largest discovery of lost treasure in US history. Yet no one had a clue how it got there. The treasure was nicknamed the Saddle Ridge Horde and thought to have been buried sometime in the late 19th century. Most of the coins were $20 gold pieces, minted in San Francisco after 1854.
Nice.
During the gold rush. However, some of the earlier coins were minted in Georgia, which raised the question of how they found their way to California. Their pristine condition suggested they'd never entered circulation, making them even more valuable. When they were buried, their face value would have been around $28,000.
Maybe someone smuggled them out there. You know what I mean? They're mint. You know what I mean? It's like what better way to hide something that's far away that no one's going to track down, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? They clearly didn't find them because these people, okay, some stumbled upon these by accident, but clearly whoever put them there, it worked because no one found them until these people stumbled across it.
But the question is, why would someone bury a fortune in gold coins and never go back for them? It's been theorized they were the proceeds of a 1901 bank heist in San Francisco, when an employee walked out with around $30,000 in gold coins. However, the US government has ruled this out, as the coins don't match those you'd expect to find from that particular robbery. Others believe they might have been the life savings of a miner who struck gold during the gold rush, who died before he could retrieve his treasure. Another theory is the original owner of the property they were found on didn't trust banks and buried his wealth on the grounds, dying before telling anyone where it was. But for now, the origins of America's largest gold treasure haul is a complete mystery, and one that may never be solved, as both the location of the coins and the identity of the people who found them are being kept a close secret. Kryptos. In 1989, American artist Jim Sanborn was busy working on his Kryptos sculpture, a cryptograph puzzle wrapped in a riddle that he created for the CIA's headquarters in Langley, Virginia. Kryptos was unveiled at the headquarters on November 3, 1990. The artwork features a large upright block of petrified wood, with a tall copper plate scrolling out from it like a sheet of paper. The base is a round pool with a fountain pump that sends water moving in a circular direction around the reservoir.
Nice.
Carved out of the copper plate are approximately 1,800 letters, some of them forming a cryptograph table based on a method developed by a 16th century Frenchman named Blaise de Vigenère. Supposedly, apart from Sabon, only retired chairman of the CIA's Cryptograph Center, Ed Scheid, and William Webster, the CIA director, know what the code reads. In 1995, a small group of crypto analysts inside the NSA managed to decipher the first 3 sections of the sculpture, though no one outside the agency knew about it. Then in 1998, CIA analyst David Stein also cracked the same 3 messages. A year later, California computer scientist Jim Gilogly gained public notoriety when he cracked and released the same 3 messages. However, to date, nearly 32 years after its installation, the 4th code has never been deciphered, and the experts who deciphered the first 3 codes have long since given up trying to solve the 4th. In 2010, Sabon released a clue to help things along. He revealed that 6 of the last 97 letters on the 4th puzzle, when decrypted, spelt the word Berlin, but still no one cracked the code. Then, in November 2014, Sanborn released another clue stating that the letters M, Z, F, P, and K, the 70th and 74th letters in passage 4, become clock. After decryption, Sanborn also added that in order to solve passage 4, you'd better delve into that particular clock, and that there are several really interesting clocks in Berlin. Still, no one cracked the code.
It's incredible, isn't it? One, it's a really funky looking statue, really cool looking statue. sculpture, and two, it has something that's in there that's like on almost on the same level as the so-called Da Vinci Code, isn't it? Kind of thing. It's really cool. I like this sort of stuff.
In January 2020, the New York Times gave another clue, stating at positions 26 to 34, ciphertext. QQPRNGKSS is the word northeast. Then in August 2020, Sanborn revealed that the 4 letters in positions 22 to 25, ciphertext FLRV, in the plain text are east. But still, no one has cracked the code, and even if they do, there's an additional message they will still need to resolve. Once decrypted, the 4th section reveals a riddle, which Sanborn has said requires sleuths to be on the CIA grounds to solve. Just to make things even more difficult, Sanborn has admitted Kryptos includes intentional spelling errors and misaligned characters set higher on a line of text.
Oh, he's sneaky.
Than characters around them. He also claimed that Ed and William only thought they knew the solution, but in fact they didn't. He had deceived them. Sanborn is 76 years old now and has mixed views on whether he wants the puzzle to be solved. He'd like to see Kryptos solved in his lifetime, but he also enjoys that some of the smartest minds in cryptography, including those at the CIA and NSA, continue to be baffled by his work. Anyone out there who thinks they can crack the code would most likely mean an instant career for the CIA.
Oh, that would be cool, wouldn't it? Someone, and what's the message? What's the hidden message? Because also, there's a level of genius there. I reckon it could be just a simple message, saying, "Oh, you should check out the clock in Germany; it's very beautiful," or something like that. Or it could, or it could have some sort of, life-changing secret. Who knows?
Adam's calendar. Adam's calendar was discovered by accident in 2003 by Johan Heen. Johan was flying his plane above hilly terrain in the Mpumalanga region of South Africa, searching for a fellow pilot who had crashed into the hillside, when he spotted a strange stone formation right on the edge of a high mountain cliff from above. After recovering the injured pilot from the crashed plane, Johan returned to the site with 5 experts to see if they could explain what he had seen. Incredibly, all 5 of them dismissed the find as just a pile of stones. So Johan did his own investigations, and his early research found the configuration of stones to have 4 cardinal directions, indicating the solstices and equinoxes in a similar manner to Stonehenge in the UK. It took him 6 years to accurately survey the monoliths and study their unique alignment, by which time the archaeological community started to take interest. The site consists of an outer stone circle about 30 meters in diameter. Inside it are several monoliths arranged in a complex pattern. The layout appears to have been built in astronomical alignments, making the site a calendar, but because the north-south, east-west alignment is out by 3 degrees, 17 minutes and 43 seconds, it indicates the structure is at least 25,000 years old, based on archaeo-astronomical calculations. 2 upright stones lie at the circle's center with carvings upon them. These stones, and much of the building materials, appear to have been transported from a distance, and the original shape of this calendar site is still discernible from aerial images, although not immediately obvious at ground level. Further studies of the geology and lichen growth revealed that the site is at least 75,000 years old, and some estimates date it as over 300,000 years old, making it the oldest artificial structure ever discovered.
Blimey.
If the monument is indeed that old, it would rewrite human history, as it would almost certainly require the involvement of a sophisticated culture to aid in its construction. There are other structures and stone circles surrounding the site.
Yeah, but then again, the thing is also, we seem to... It is that school education or school upbringing thing where we're taught, we always taught that cavemen and stone and Stone Age people and things like that were all like people who scrape their knuckles along like ugh ugh and really stupid. But it's like in England, where was it, Brownsea Island, which is constructed. It's an island that was built by people. It's like they're a lot more advanced than we give ourselves credit for. We have trade routes, all kinds of things going on. And despite where our impressions are, we were quite smart. We were a lot more smarter than we thought at first thought. You know what I mean? A lot of these ancient civilizations were quite smart. And when we learn, I'm not saying that aliens didn't visit us back then, but it's that we were a lot smarter than we gave ourselves credit for. You know what I mean? Back then, we didn't scrape our knuckles across the floor. You know what I mean? We weren't that stupid. Oh, pardon me. A lot more smart than we were led to believe.
Which are built with complementary alignments, connected by a series of channels. Researchers believe these channels are rough roads to give access to Adam's calendar. Even today, the calendar works perfectly, as it allows people to track the time of day and year by following the shadow of the setting sun. The sun's shadow is cast by the taller monolith across the center of the flat stone beside it. Research also uncovered sound frequencies which the rock formations receive from the earth underneath them. As technologies have advanced, scientists have successfully worked upon detecting the sound frequencies and measured them with all acoustic properties. These frequencies have been traced to the earth underneath the area enclosed by the stone circles. This has led to the startling theory that these stones also conduct electricity, albeit in a manner we do not understand. The sound frequencies from the earth within those stones form the resonant shape of flowers, representing a form of sacred geometry within the landscape. So who or what...
See, I think it's a Metatron's cube that I covered in my other videos. Sacred geometry, the life flower, the seed flower. And also in those videos, I did actually have a link to a video by another channel. They did like a 3-hour documentary on sacred, or 2-hour documentary on sacred geometry. But that's, you know, it all comes down to that. You know what I mean? It all connects. You know what I mean? It's really good. And these ancient cultures knew about sacred geometry, which has like the secrets of, all encapsulates everything the earth is made out of, everything down to the atoms. It's really incredible stuff.
Constructed Adam's calendar, as it would almost certainly require the involvement of a sophisticated culture to aid in its construction. Theories range from a vanished unknown civilization to, of course, ancient aliens. The alien theory is backed up by the apparent requirement to view the site from an aerial vantage point, suggesting, if it is as old as experts believe, humans were not involved in its construction.
Well, to be fair, if you did have to be fair though, with sacred geometry, you don't need necessarily an aerial view, because you can work out on a graph, if it makes sense. Like Fibonacci, you can work out on a sheet. There's various things that sacred geometry like helps us be able to map out galaxies and stuff, of how the galaxies form, not form, but I mean, look, you can use it to map out stuff, even on paper. So,
For now, this little known but very important structure is a mystery, but it's a mystery that could rewrite human history. The mystery of King Arthur's existence. We've all heard of King Arthur, the heroic monarch who led his trusted knights into victorious battles against the Saxon invaders of the early 6th century. His story has everything, but in case you are unfamiliar, here's a brief overview. Arthur was born in Tintagel Castle in Cornwall, England, and when his father, King Uther, died, the teenage Arthur managed to pull out...
Well, he's actually Welsh. Arthur, his second name begins with M, but it's Arthur II, and he was actually a Welsh king.
A sword set in stone to beat his rivals and take over the throne, all under the watchful eye of his mentor Merlin. Queen Guinevere, Arthur's wife, brought romance to the story, while his half-sister Morgan Le Fay added another twist. Into the mix was Sir Lancelot, one of the world's greatest knights, along with the search for the Holy Grail. As the Saxons slowly started to take over Britain, King Arthur built a castle at Camelot and gathered his chivalrous knights around the famous Round Table.
Apparently one of his descendants is in Australia as a car salesman or something like that.
Under the guidance of Merlin,
who incidentally is more entitled and in line with the throne than the current monarchy or something like that, something interesting like that.
Arthur obtained a mighty sword called Excalibur, and with his weapon, he and his knights defeated numerous rivals. After many great battles and a massive victory at Mount Badon, the Saxons' advance was finally halted. However, eventually Sir Lancelot deceived Arthur by having an affair with Queen Guinevere. A furious King Arthur wanted to punish his wife and his knight for their cheating, and planned to burn his wife at the stake. Other versions say his nephew, Nordred, was the one who deceived him, and tried to take over his crown. The two fought, and Arthur fatally wounds Mordred, but is left mortally wounded himself. Morgan Le Fay tends to his wounds, but is unable to save him. After Arthur's death, Morgan puts his body on a boat and floats it downriver to the Isle of Avalon, and it's never seen again. With a legacy like that, it's no wonder King Arthur has inspired many books, documentaries and movies, not to mention tourist attractions, and most of us believe he was a real person.
But thing is, well, so the reason why they won't confirm that it's this Welsh king is, to be fair, there's so much money put into it, like books from other experts and tourist attractions, you know what I mean? If we destroy that mystery, then there's a lot of, money lost, if that makes sense. And plus it challenges the current monarchy as well, because his, like I said, one of his descendants, I think, is living in Australia or something.
Was he? The existence of King Arthur has been debated for centuries, and historians have been unable to confirm that he really existed. Considering he was such a hero and crucial to the whole...
Well, I think it's Alan Wilson. I got it in one of his books, actually, but yeah, it's like, well, it depends. There is actually evidence of him in Wales. Like I said, there's evidence of him in Wales. Yeah. But again, it comes down to the establishments don't want to acknowledge it because of certain things. The controversy of the monarchy, and also there's so much money into it, like Glastonbury, all kinds of tourist attractions and stuff will be affected. And plus, other people invested their books in it, their own theories in it. And why would you buy their books if the mystery's solved? I mean,
of the Saxon invasion, his name does not appear in the only surviving contemporary source about the invasion, in which the Celtic monk Gildas wrote of the real-life battle at Badon Hills in around 500 AD. If Arthur were the hero...
no, but there is an Arthur mentioned in it. It's Arthur 2. I have to find out the name, but yeah, I might do a video on it at some point in the future, but there is an Arthur mentioned.
Of such an important battle, you would think he would get a mention. In fact, it was several hundred years later that King Arthur was written about, when Geoffrey of Monmouth writes about King Arthur and introduces figures who would become central to the Arthurian legend, including Guinevere, Lancelot.
Geoffrey Monmouth wrote the romanticised version, if that makes sense, the fantasy. I mean, it's like, Father Christmas. Father Christmas is based on a real guy called St. Nicholas. I mean, all these myths are loosely based on real people, sort of thing, if that makes sense. But Jesus, I can't really vouch for. According to a lot of historians, he didn't exist. But in general, because a lot of the Jesus stories was taken from Egyptian, like Horus and stuff like that. It's like a monomyth. It's like if you read Joseph Campbell's book, Man of Many Faces, as a monomyth. If you look at everything Jesus said, you'll find it in the Egyptian text, saying that Horus said and things like that. Who also was born on the same day as Jesus, all kinds of stuff. It's like, so it's a taking of other cultures' beliefs. But there are certain characters who historically did exist, like St. Nick, who's actually was a real guy. So, and like I said, he's a Welsh king. It's just because of certain internal issues and disagreements and stuff.
Merlin, Morgan Le Fay, and his magical sword Caliban, later known as Excalibur. The book was supposedly based on a lost Celtic manuscript that only Geoffrey had access to. Other varying descriptions of King Arthur's life have appeared in ancient poems, and Wales have their own depiction of the legend. It was French poet Chrétien de Troyes who introduced Arthur's search for the mysterious Holy Grail. As the centuries passed, the legend of King Arthur grew stronger, and English rulers from Henry VIII to Queen Victoria have mentioned him. But whether he really lived still remains a mystery, and many historians continue to search for evidence and clues proving existence, while others believe the legendary tales are just that, and that Arthur was likely an amalgamation based on several figures of that era. So that's it for this video. We hope you've enjoyed these 5 incredible unsolved mysteries of the world. Remember, if you want more content from us, not only are we uploading a Top 5s video every week, and one too close to home episode per month. We're also aiming to upload 2 documentaries over on Patreon each month, a Murderous Minds episode and a Minds of Madness episode. So if you're craving more, then head on over to Patreon to not only show your support, but also get access to all of our content over there. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next video.
Hey, very good, eh? Very interesting. Some really cool stuff on there, isn't it? That sculpture though, with the riddle and the code and that was really fascinating. Anyway, the link to Top 5 is in the description below. If you like this video, hit the like, and if you haven't already subscribed, then please do, and I love you forever. And thanks again for watching this with me. And also, don't forget to hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Okay? Until next time, folks, take care and be well.